Good evening. Thanks for joining us. In a unanimous vote, the Wisconsin Supreme Court handing a victory today to the Republican-controlled legislature in a power struggle with Democratic Governor Tony Evers.
This decision coming from the 4 liberal judges siding with the 3 conservatives. They strike down Evers' partial veto of a Republican bill. This is a case that actually tested both the limits of his broad veto powers and the legislature's ability to exert influence by controlling funding. The governor addressing the outcome just a short time ago during a visit to a child care center in De Pere, and our chief political reporter Jason Zimmerman was there. He's live in the studio with this First Alert update. Jason.
Jamie, the governor says he is not going to let this deter him from getting the funds tied up right now by Republicans from going to local schools, but conceded that he will accept the ruling by all 7 justices which went against his wishes. Republican lawmakers have tried to take control away from the governor's office by placing money to fund certain programs and state agencies in an emergency fund controlled by the legislature's budget committee. That gives the legislature significant influence over the funding and the implementation of certain programs within the executive branch. Evers argued that the legislature is trying to limit his partial veto power and illegally control how the executive branch spends money. However, the court ruled that Evers improperly used his partial veto in a bill that detailed the plan for spending on new literacy programs designed to improve K-12 students' reading performance. The court also sided with the legislature and said the budget committee can legally put money into an emergency fund that can be distributed later. That is what it has done with the $50 million for the literacy program.
So the only response I have is let's get the money out to the schools so that they can complete their work. I mean, this has dragged on for way too long. So even though we lost, it's not like I'm going to sit back and gnash my teeth about it. The bottom line is we have $50 million sitting in the Joint Finance Committee. Let's figure out how we're going to get it out the door.
The ruling against Evers comes after the court earlier this year upheld Evers' partial veto that locked in a school funding increase for 400 years. The court last year issued a ruling that reined in some powers of the legislature's budget committee. This ruling went the other way. Cammie, back to you.